Now.Chicago. I'm John Hansen. So October was National Substance Abuse Prevention Month, but it's a topic that deserves as much open conversation as possible all year long. Whether it's alcohol or opioids or any other number of drugs or vices that people have, I imagine that every one of us knows someone struggling with addiction, perhaps yourself as well. And maybe you've made it through recovery, or maybe your friends or family have, or maybe they're still struggling through that. So today we've got a really interesting show about substance abuse and how you or someone you know can be inspired to find help and to find hope. So Dr. Caitlin Simpson is the Director of Clinical Operations for Footprints to Recovery. Doctor, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
So I mentioned that kind of off the top, the stigma about having these conversations. Do you feel like talking on whether it's media programs or conversations at the dinner table, that this is a really big first step for everyone just to talk about the reality of the situation?
Absolutely. It's unbelievably prevalent, and I think that we need to have a lot more conversations than are actually occurring about addiction.
I think one of the hardest things for people to wrap their heads around is to understand, if they haven't gone through it themselves, or maybe not someone they really are close with, to understand how it works, how the brain becomes addicted to these we all know they're dangerous drugs that can be used and abused. So I was hoping maybe you could shed a little bit of light on just how easy it is. I hate to say that word, but any one of us can become addicted to one of these drugs. It is not that difficult to do, and it happened to millions of Americans.
Millions across the board it happens, and it's unbelievably easy. Some people will use for that first time and be hooked right away, and other people, it takes a little bit of time. But eventually what happens is the drugs hijack the brain, and it acts on the reward system and basically induces that sense of pleasure, which then people go constantly seeking the same enjoyment that they had the first time they used.
When we talk about stigmas, we have these images in our head of who are those drug users, and I think probably it's changed a lot, and that's really good lately. But, 20, 30 years ago was this maybe the person who's down on his luck who lives on the streets, or some, young punker kid, or, you see the grunge movement of the night. That's who's doing it. That's not it at all. That's not the reality.
That's not it at all. At Footprints to Recovery, we see the average people coming in are between the ages of 18 to 27, and I think that's pretty much standard across the nation. So the average user these days isn't, the person that you see on the corner. It's the football player on the football team that maybe got an injury and got addicted to opiates, or it's mom, it's dad that is taking benzos because they're so anxious, so they were prescribed a prescription for Xanax. It's the kid next door. It's everybody, and it's a huge problem for the upcoming generations because that fear that existed for some of these opiates, and especially for heroin, isn't really there anymore because it's so commonly used and it's so widely used. So it's a really terrifying time for our younger kids that are growing up today.
That transition from opioids or prescription drugs to heroin, I think we got to dive into that a little bit. How does that happen? Is it a matter that the prescription drugs get cut off and heroin is just a cheap option that's there? Is it that simple?
I think it's that simple. I think it's a little more complicated too. I think we see if someone is prescribed opiates, which isn't always the case when someone does get addicted. Right. They might have been, at a party and used at a party, or buying it off the street already. But they go from using those opiates, and they either can't get the prescriptions anymore, or it becomes too expensive to buy on the street. And because it's a little bit more expensive. So that switch to heroin is so much cheaper. It's readily accessible, it's available, and it's more pure. So the high is more intense than that from an opiate-based pain medication.
To someone watching that, again, that does not experience this firsthand, that must seem like such a crazy leap to make. And I'm sure a lot of users feel that too. But the need and the desire is there, and it's the brain needing what it wants is the driving factor.
But that's really the crazy thing about addiction, is that the unacceptable becomes acceptable because your inhibitions and your judgment is so hijacked by those drugs that you start making decisions that you would never make in sobriety. So all of those things, people end up stealing or robbing from people or engaging in acts that they never would engage in when they were well because they have that need to get that drug. So the unacceptable becomes acceptable, and it's a really scary place for people to be.
I think a lot of people, especially when you're talking about younger people, but adults as well, we often are like, discipline these people, and we could have a whole show about prison systems, all this sort of stuff. Let's not even go there. Let's talk about, before we get to that part, hopefully, the idea of Footprints to Recovery, a place where you get an all-encompassing experience.
Right.
That's not the best word to say it, but it really an all-encompassing, a comprehensive look at addiction and trying to treat people, right?
Yes, absolutely. Our whole philosophy is that addiction is a symptom of something greater. So we look at all of the underlying factors that are driving someone's addiction. We see so much co-occurring mental health disorders and a significant amount of our clients that come in with traumatic experiences. So what we've done is we've created a model of treatment that we've really called a hybrid care model, where we have a foundation of treatment that addresses all of the behaviors, thoughts, feelings, symptoms of addiction, but simultaneously addresses all of the underlying issues that drive the addiction. So we treat the whole person, and we don't just engage them in treating all the underlying issues, but it's also about helping them put all the pieces of their life back together outside of treatment. Maybe they're on probation, or they have extensive medical issues or dental issues or family problems. We engage the family, we take them to court, we take them to their medical doctors, because those transitions after treatment are often very difficult for them and can also lead to relapse. So we support them through all of that, and it's really great because when you come to Footprints, you enter our family. You come into our family, we welcome you, we support you through everything, and then we have an alumni program afterwards to keep everyone engaged with us, because recovery is about connection. It's about having good relationships, staying connected. So we have weekly alumni meetings, monthly alumni meetings, and we really do support everyone after they leave treatment.
Recovery, I imagine, is not a one-size-fits-all treatment plan, and I imagine you really strive to treat it as what it is, an individual issue that takes a lot of individual decisions to be made.
Everyone has their own history, and everyone has their own unique experiences, so their treatment needs to be unique to them, which is why we've designed multiple different specializations within our treatment model so that everyone has exactly what they need to be able to be well.
It's a huge step to get into a facility or into a recovery program like Footprints to Recovery. I imagine that it's hard to even get in the door. Once you're there, it's hard to get off the drug. There's medical issues that go along with those things a lot of times. But then all can be well and good inside, and then going outside can then be a whole different situation. Do you guys anticipate triggers that people might see on the outside and try and address those beforehand?
Absolutely. It's part of treatment. And that's really why we focus on helping them put all those areas of their life back into place before they leave, because those are huge triggers to go home to, large family problems or conflicts with parents. So we try to engage the families and wrap those services around people and help them anticipate what they're going to experience when they go home, and having that relapse prevention plan in place to be able to successfully manage those things.
So for our viewers in the Chicagoland area, Arlington Heights is the facility that you guys have, right?
Yep.
And I keep on using the word facility, which sounds so gray. The bill, I don't even know what the whole expense, the program, I guess you could say. And you guys are going under a renovation, right, as well?
We are. We're renovating. We're expanding. We're going to have about 3,000 square feet of new space, and we're also right in the process now of rolling out our new adventure therapy program, which is really exciting. So we're excited to be able to do that as well.
I don't think that you can't even put a price on recovery, obviously, but there is. And I just wanted to ask a little bit about, for people that might be really, really worried about paying for something, or if their insurance covers it, what sorts of advisories do you have for people going through that sort of decision process too?
You have to educate yourself. You can contact your local county health department. You can call our admissions department. We'll answer any questions you might have about insurance or questions or how to access treatment, because even if we're not the provider to be able to give you care, we're going to help link you to someone that can. We never leave anyone without access to information so that they can get help.
I think that there's some negative stigmas about some recovery plans that are out there as I don't want to even say money, but for-profit companies exist, of course, in the sphere. But it seems like, just from talking with you, this seems personal, like a mission for you, that this is something you really believe in.
100%. I absolutely believe in it. It's been everything I've invested myself into and everything that I believe in helping others. And Footprints is a place that, yes, we might be a for-profit organization, but we have a nonprofit heart. And we really care about all of our clients that come through the door and helping everyone to have the care they need.
That's wonderful. I hope that you don't mind taking a quick break and come back in the last segment. We're going to talk to a really inspiring person in your outreach program, a U.S. Marine who went through some own issues. We're going to talk to him next, and you'll join us again?
Great.
Promise?
Promise.
All right, sounds good. We'll be back next here on Now.Chicago. folks, welcome back to Now.Chicago. Now we're discussing substance abuse and how you or someone you know can get some help. And sometimes inspiring stories are sometimes the best motivators. So Nick Kratzer is a former U.S. Marine. Well, no one's ever a former U.S. Marine. You're always a U.S. Marine. He's got an incredible story to tell. Nick, thank you so much for joining us here today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to tell your story, and it starts back in New Jersey when you were a high school junior. 9/11 happened, so we're just about the same age. Obviously, a huge impact in our lives and our formative years. What was your reaction to that? Because it helps tell your story, informs your story as a U.S. Marine.
The immediate thought was, I'm going to see my recruiter, and I was too young, so he put me on a delayed entry program, and I worked at it for, the rest of junior year, senior year, and graduated high school and shipped out.
For you, it's a family thing too, right?
It is. My father's Marine. Some uncles were in the Army. My grandfathers both served during one was, I'm saying I'm a lot.
Yeah. That's okay. Yeah, you've had for serving both in World War II, correct?
World War II and Korea.
That's incredible stuff, and we thank them for their service, and of course you as well. It's important to talk about it because obviously we got Veterans Day coming up, and that's important. But it's informative to your story as well because when you were doing a training exercise, you got hurt, right? Talk us through that.
I did. It was, we were out in the field, and we were doing some day-night movements. I wound up rolling my ankle on a rock and twisting my knee with all the extra weight. It kind of just snapped everything. So I've had a total of 4 operations, numerous amount of painkillers, physical therapy, and that's really what started me on, my course through addiction.
So what was that course like? Because obviously people have these sorts of injuries and, prescription pills are an important step. I mean, towards recovery, you've got to feel better in order to get better. Walk us through when taking a pill to make your leg feel better turned into something else.
For me, once I had that first opiate, it kind of just grabbed a hold of me.
Right away.
Right away. I really didn't understand the feeling that I was feeling, but I loved it. The euphoria, I had some energy. I felt my best.
Did you take, I guess what I'm asking then is because obviously for a while people are like, oh, he's taking pills because his leg hurts. Did you know that it was different, that it felt different and it wasn't just that? Did other people know that, or were you able to kind of hide maybe your issues under the fact that you had this injury and taking pills as part of it?
I hid for almost 10 years.
Really?
That's how long I was out there suffering. The feeling made me, that's what kept me going, but it also helped with the pain.
Right.
At first.
So when did you realize that you had a problem? Was it right away, or was it as you talked to other people? Walk us through that.
It was, it was progressive, so eventually it took me where I couldn't go anywhere unless I had my medication, quote unquote medication, from different doctors, and then, finally to the street. I started stealing. I stole from, family members, helped them look for it, that kind of grimy stuff. But I really was just so focused on not getting sick at that point. It wasn't about getting high. It was so that I could function, and do my job, because I always had a job. And that's what kind of allowed me to pay for, the pills and then eventually heroin.
That transition to heroin, walk us, I think for a lot of people out there, that seems like such an extreme leap. Did it seem that way to you, or did it seem like that was the only option you had?
It was. Like, for me, it was still like that taboo, like skull and crossbones, don't do that.
Right.
But the way it was offered to me, like, hey, just this little bit, it was $10, it'll make you feel better, no big deal. And it did. And then it became, bags after bags and days and stealing siding and, just to go to the junkyard to get money. It was a never-ending vicious cycle of insanity.
How long were you on heroin for?
Probably the last 2-3 years before I got clean.
I imagine a lot of people, because they see, we have these images, I think we have these stereotypes and these stigmas in our head about who are the people that abuse opioids, who are the people that use heroin. And you're like the exact opposite of what a lot of people out there would maybe picture as a heroin user. And that's probably wrong, because there really are a lot of people that have similar stories to you. Do you feel like that's the case?
I do. I think it's it's absurd for us to be so misinformed these days. Like I mentioned, the high school health education piece with the skull and crossbones, don't do that. That's so bad. But it's not just the dirty homeless man, sitting with newspapers covering him in the street. It's executives, it's teachers, it's really anybody. There's no one that it won't grab onto. Doesn't matter what your job set is or how much money you make.
How'd you get better?
So for me, I was at the end of my road. I mean, I attempted suicide. I've broken bones to go to the hospital to get pain meds. I overdosed in my father's arms on his birthday and was, rushed to the hospital and that whole process, detox. And I wound up going to Footprints to Recovery. And it was like, I was more nervous going into treatment than I was shipping out to boot camp. I didn't know what to expect. I felt like I couldn't really be honest with people about how much I used because I thought that I was the only one with this issue. And it was the clinical team. It was everybody down to the techs that really helped me kind of embrace who I was and who I could be.
Is it the first time you tried to seek treatment through one of these organizations, or
the first time that I was actually honest about it? I tried the outpatient here and lied and minimized. I tried to stop on my own, and that was another vicious cycle. I would stop doing the opiates, but then continue with the coke and drinking, and then a few days later I would feel better from the withdrawal, and then I said, let me dabble a little bit. I only use Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I won't get sick. And then Tuesday came along and kind of wanted it, and it wouldn't be that bad because I just started using again, but I always fell back into that pattern.
So you were nervous going in. Talk us through the process. Why did Footprints to Recovery work for you?
I mean, it's this model that they started to create. It's a lifestyle model. It's incorporating life skills into the treatment plan. So it's not just addressing the drugs and the alcohol, which are the most important things. That's absolutely addressed. But then it's the behaviors that follow it. It's what do I do after treatment? How do I manage a bank account? How do I write a resume? How do I figure out
all-encompassing life
right,
things, right?
like go to ShopRite and shop for food. I can't just live off of Red Bull and cigarettes for the rest of my life.
I think that's something that people miss sometimes when we talk about substance abuse, is they say, if we can just fix the drug aspect of it, then we're fine. And I think people don't get then when someone does, maybe they don't use for a couple weeks, how then they're not just cured, how that's not a thing. But it's way more than that.
The drugs are just a symptom, like this runs so deep. It's all about behaviors and the way I think and how I respond to situations as opposed to reacting to them. Like building that 3-second pause button. Sometimes it's half a second, but it's kind of just like playing the tape through and realizing for me, going back and using, I'm going to end up in the same place, regardless if it takes me a month, a year, 10 years, whatever the case is. I'm going to end up desperate, feeling alone, hating myself, and wanting to get help again.
So you've been sober now for almost 4 years, right?
Coming up on 4 years in February 6th.
Does that give you a real sense of pride?
It does. That's more important than my birthday. It's, it's kind of like an alive day. It's when my life started to change for the better. I don't think life sucks in general. I hear that a lot. People, FML and my life's terrible. It's really not. Like, life is so precious, and there's terrible, difficult moments throughout life. I've been through death. I've been through relationship issues, or any kind of issue that arises, traffic, whatever it is. But they're these little tiny moments in the grand scheme of things, and I'm not the same person I was, almost 4 years ago.
So now you do outreach for Footprints to Recovery. What does that mean to you to be able to spread the message and to try and help people along who are in situations much like yours?
Having the ability or being able to offer help, it's probably a much better high. It actually is a much better high than any opiate, any drug that I've used. Like, I get to sit down, there's a big part of our job in outreach. So, we talk to other facilities, we try to go into hospitals and educate and try to get people, to come through Footprints so that they can experience what I did. But I do interventions. I sit down with families and like being able to like share my experience with somebody and having somebody say, I know, me too. And kind of getting vulnerable and allowing help to help them. It's incredible.
It's a really inspiring story. I know you probably don't necessarily look at it like that because it's your life, but I think that having these conversations in a very public way really does help people, because I know there's a viewer out there that either they're struggling with something that you went through, or certainly they know someone that is. What's your message to someone going through this?
Like, just ask for help. I mean, if that, this is why I do what I do. I don't believe in my own anonymity. I'd rather have people know where I came from and where I am, so that if somebody is struggling, they don't feel so alone. They don't feel so ashamed where they're not going to reach out and then potentially overdose and not get that chance that I've gotten.
All right, we're going to have a little bit more time in the next segment. Dr. Simpson is going to sit down and join us again. We met her in the first segment. I just got to say thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we're going to chat a little bit more about this coming up next on Now.Chicago. All right, folks, welcome back to Now.Chicago. We're still with Dr. Caitlin Simpson and Nick Kratzer from Footprints to Recovery. Caitlin, I wanted to mention, because we talked about cost in the first segment,
Yes.
We neglected to talk about the scholarship programs that you guys are able to offer too, right?
We do. We have a scholarship program, and actually, since we opened our doors in 2013, we've given away over $5 million of scholarships to our clients.
That's incredible. What do those scholarships go to pay towards?
Towards their treatment.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That really makes a difference, I imagine, for a lot of people.
It does, because there's so many people that don't have access to the means to be able to get into treatment, so it's great when we can offer that to them.
Yeah, and I didn't say makes a difference. It could make the difference for people being able to
Could save a
recover.
life.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, I wanted to mention that, like a lot of people probably enter the program in many different ways, times a day. But what's great about Footprints to Recovery is you guys are open 24/7 in a way, right?
We are. So admissions is open 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And it's really as simple as just giving them a call. You're going to have a licensed clinician who's overseeing the process. We're going to get them the insurance verified. We're going to get them screened for the appropriate level of care with us. And then it's as simple as setting up the admission date.
You mentioned being nervous, more nervous than when you were shipping out. Put someone at ease right now that maybe is feeling that exact same feeling. They're maybe thinking about calling, they're thinking about going, but they're still having that reservation. I guess make the pitch for why they should, while they may be nervous, why you guys can help them out and not to quell those nerves.
Very simply put, it's worth it. Just to be able to experience just a portion of what I've experienced, or what countless others who have come in, completed the program, and are living, it's 2018, their best life. It's just about having that courage just for a second, 3 seconds of courage. Just pick up that phone. We'll walk you through it. Being on the outreach department, I answer my phone at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's about helping that next person. It's about getting them when they're ready.
Kate, obviously people talk to people, friends, family across the country. You have a few other centers that are open. Are you guys hoping to expand one day and keep it going and keep on helping other people? I imagine that's part of your guys' goal.
Absolutely. Our goal is to save lives and to help as many people as we can.
What's the best way for people to reach you guys? Is it the website, or is it finding the local phone number? How can people find out more information?
You can find out information on footprintstorecovery.com, and then we have our admissions number that you can contact 24/7, which
855-628-2899.
It really is about saving lives, isn't it? And there's probably nothing you guys take. I mean, this seems like obviously part of the work that you do, but it seems to have transcended work and become something that is deeply personal.
I love what I do every day. I feel so blessed that I work for this company and that I'm able to help the people that I do.
Nick, these issues of substance abuse unfortunately do affect our members of our military and our retiring veterans. This is something that obviously you're part of the program. I imagine that with that individual care, that's something that's looked at and taken care of too, analyzing that from a military background and just helping people individually, right?
Absolutely. And like Dr. Kate was saying, even if they're not a fit for our program, we work tirelessly to get them somewhere. Regardless if it's, calling up the IME number, for New Jersey, which is the intermediate managing entity, to kind of help people get placed with state funding and calling resources. We just don't stop until we actually get somebody in a door.
And you said ever there. I don't know if you heard.
We never stop.
Dr. Kate, Nick, thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
All right, we're going to wrap things up next here on Now.Chicago. And Welcome back back to Now.Chicago. Substance abuse affects millions of people across this country, really tens of millions, indirectly or directly. And organizations like Footprints to Recovery are often that important step that people need to take control of their lives and save their lives. It's a conversation like the one we had today that helps end the stigma about substance abuse. These conversations are important so that everyone feels comfortable and safe in order to find and save their life. Head to footprints2recovery.com for more information on their organization, or give them a call, 855-628-2899. Until next time, I'm Jon Hansen. Thanks so much for watching Now.Chicago.